FNCS Heat 2 is officially over, so here are 9 things that we can learn from the tournament. Starting off with the main story, there were far too many close calls with the qualification. This cup was absolutely brutal. We had top teams struggling very uncharacteristically, the best example of which being Sky and Skrull. Now this is a team that is normally super consistent. Of course, in the first 11 divisional cups of 2026, they got top 10 in every single one. Yes, they had a bit of a slow start to this season, but they have been picking up form. They've been steadily improving, and honestly, I did not expect them to struggle in this heat at all. I thought it would be simple for them. I thought it would be just like Shark and Teeny, where they would play out all 5 games, they would drop crazy eliminations, they would key the last few, they'd look incredibly comfortable, and it played out absolutely nothing like that. The truth is that Sky and Skrull were incredibly fortunate to even qualify. They only managed 149 points, which in Heat 1 would not have been enough to get into the top 15, which does say a lot about their performance. Going into the last match, it was by no means guaranteed that they were going to qualify. Skrull had to solo clutch in order to get enough points, and listen, I have to say, it was a real shock. I've taken a look through some of their games, and it feels very reminiscent of the first divisional cup of the season, where they were really struggling in the end games. You can see here in the second match, they get lobby sprayed, which completely ends their game. In game 3, they actually are below Surge. Now, it is worth noting that they didn't pull a single zone during this tournament, which Sky did attribute as the main reason for their struggles, which is fair enough, but also at the same time, we've seen that in the past, Sky and Skrull have been able to negotiate bad zones. They've done well when zones haven't pulled to them. This was especially evident when they were landing over at Battlewood Boulevard. They would sit in Storm, they would use their heals, and they would always be able to beat the Storm. They wouldn't let it affect them. And it seems like in this tournament, that just was not the case. Now, in their third match, as I mentioned, they were below Surge, and that ultimately did spell the end of their game. Yes, they came back in game 4. Yes, they got enough points in game 5, but it was a very unconvincing performance and far below the expectations of Sky and Skrull. And that's the point. We have high expectations for these guys because they are one of the best duos in the world. We can hold them to the highest standard imaginable. So maybe I'm being harsh. At the end of the day, they did qualify, which is all that matters, but it was not a good performance. I thought they'd dominate. I thought they'd be like Shark and Teeny. Instead, they barely scraped through, and it does leave me a little bit concerned going into grand finals. I'm sure they're going to bounce back. We know how much quality they have, but this was not a good showing. And it's a similar story for Darm and Demus. The Polish duo struggled even more, only finishing on 134 points, which somehow was enough to qualify them through. I do feel like they got incredibly lucky because that is not a high points tally. Their biggest issue was their mid-game fights. They were getting consistently bested in every encounter, and because of that, they were getting stuck in the Storm. They were playing on the back foot. We didn't see the Darm and Demus that we've come to know and love. We didn't see them playing front foot Fortnite like they usually do. Now listen, I said similar stuff about Chino and Pablo and Swizzy and Pixie in yesterday's video, but I do believe this example is even more extreme, and they are both aware that they did get quite lucky. They are fortunate that they don't have to negotiate the last chance qualifiers, but at the end of the day, they have made it through. They will be in grands. It's time for them to lock in and not let a repeat of this performance happen again. But you know what it is? These two big duos struggling puts Shark and Teeny's performance from yesterday into a whole new light. The fact that they dropped a 23 elimination win during the heat, the fact that they got 3 second places as well, is genuinely astounding, especially when you have the context that teams like Sky and Skrull, like Darm and Demus, are really struggling. Shark and Teeny had no such issues, and they will genuinely be one of, if not the clear favourite for the FNCS Grand Finals. Now let's move on to point 2. The UK is officially back. We saw some great performances from British duos during this tournament, the best one being King, Cringe and Twy, who finished first for consistency, a really good showing from them. Twy in particular was absolutely insane. He had 18 eliminations, the most out of any player in the entire lobby. I do honestly think that he's one of the most underrated fraggers in the world. This isn't the first time that he's been top of a leaderboard like this. He deserves way more credit for his fighting ability. And listen, this duo as a whole do deserve a lot more respect. I feel like the narrative that they are not underrated but actually a good team is something that has been going around a lot more lately. I've been saying this for absolutely ages. They are very, very close to being a tier 1 team. They're just about knocking on the door. I believe they're very capable of getting a high FNCS placement, and once I believe they're capable of winning an FNCS, that's when we can call them tier 1, but this was a really strong showing. And they weren't the only UK duo that did well. We had Frosty and Josh75 narrowly qualifying in 15th place, sneaking into that final qualification spot. I picked these guys in my predictions. UK teams and mid-map are a great combination, and they didn't disappoint me. A really solid showing from them. I asked Frosty what made his performance so good, and he stated that it was all the work they did beforehand, like setting up this lurk in game 2, which ended up being carried out to perfection. So fair play to these guys. It was a pretty crazy end to the tournament. They actually got 2 knocks in the final game that they did not get any points for because Frosty went down before he could get the kill credit, but nonetheless they were able to qualify by 1 point, so it was pretty narrow margins, but nonetheless they made it through and they will be in the grand finals. Congratulations to them. And let's not forget another UK player. We had Pink do well alongside his duo of Haris, 2 players that haven't really shown much over the past few months. They've not been great since Globals, but I did like what I saw from them in this tournament, and who knows, maybe this is the start of their comeback. On to point 3, and this is just a short one. I was very impressed with how clinical Vico and Malibuca were during this tournament. They went out and won the first game of heats, meaning they did not have to play any of the subsequent matches, and they immediately confirmed their qualification spot. And this is not what I expected. I thought they'd have to play out all 5 games. I thought they'd try and get as much practice as possible, but no, they made light work of it. So fair play to them. This is a far cry from what we saw during Major 1, where they finished 16th in their heat, meaning they actually didn't qualify for Grands. They only got in because a team got banned, so there was no messing around for the Summit Land Champs. We will be seeing them in the Grand Finals. On to point 4, Rax has finally been unleashed. In this tournament we saw Rax playing at such a high level, and he is someone who has been regarded as a great prospect in EU for quite some time now, but it has felt like he's kind of struggled over the past few months. Players like Shark and Ghost have gone to new levels, whilst Rax has stagnated a little bit. Of course, he struggled in the previous FNCS with Seti, but since coming back to playing with Yanis, he has been looking different. They've been doing good in the divisional cups, and now on the biggest stage they are performing. Rax dropping a crazy amount of eliminations. He had 17, which did put him in second. It's fair to say that he is back on the path that he was always meant to be on. The question is, can he qualify for Globals? I do believe it could be on the cards because him and Yanis are looking really solid. Point number 5, Japko and Panzer do not work anymore, and that is the brutally honest truth. They are a duo that did of course split, and then they got back together just before this FNCS, and I feel like that was mostly out of convenience because they've just not been looking that good together. They did have their moments, don't get me wrong. Back in Chapter 7 they got a divisional cup win. They had a couple of tournaments where they looked solid. They qualified for the EWC LAN, but outside of that there were so many cups where they were struggling, where they weren't qualifying, where they didn't look like a good team, and I can't understand why they got back together. I know it was the easiest thing to do, but it did feel like there was a lack of ambition there. Now, don't get me wrong, I did think they'd finish in the top 15 today, but I'm not overly surprised that they didn't make it. I do think they're a duo that do need to split, and they both need to look for alternative options. Now, let's move on over to point 6. It might be time to let go of some of these names. Mersash and Tayson had a far from ideal tournament. I know that Mersash crashed in one of the games, but based on their points average, I don't think it would have made a difference anyway. They did look pretty off it, and these are 2 players that have really struggled since Globals. They haven't had many good placements. They haven't been putting that much time into the game, so it's not a real shock to see them struggling. I didn't really believe that they were going to qualify, but it is definitely a shame because it would have been nice to see the Chapter 4 Season 1 FNCS winners making another Grands together. Another duo that struggled was Vanya and the Frizzy, and again, I'm really not surprised. It's crazy to think that a year ago Vanya was regarded as one of the best players in the world, but many people were saying he was the best player of 2025. He came second at Globals. His stocks were so high, and now I feel like the silence around him says a lot. The fact that no one's even really talking about him, despite the fact he's missed out on the FNCS Grand Finals, just says a lot about the expectations around him. No one fully believed that he was going to qualify. And listen, I don't want to sound too harsh with these 2 duos, but the truth is we have seen them fall off a bit. When you think about all 4 of these guys and where their stocks were this time last year going into Globals to now where they haven't even made FNCS Grand Finals, all of them for the 2nd time in a row, it is something that needs to be brought up. Now, Now let's discuss point 7, how a denied visa ended this entire duo. I am of course talking about Church and Repairs, a team that were looking really good prior to the Summit LAN. They were doing great in all the Div Cups, they were very consistent, but then Church got denied his visa for the Summit LAN in Germany, meaning Repairs had to play with Fastroki instead. They did end up underperforming, and since then Church and Repairs have not been able to build on the momentum that they once had. Their performances have been lacking. They've only made 1 out of the 4 Div Cup finals this season, and they came 41st in that finals, so it's not been great from them, and this was the last straw. After they didn't qualify through these heats, they have now split as a duo, so 1 denied visa pretty much ended this team. Now that setback was not great for that duo, but a lot of other teams have something to smile about. Here are all the other duos that qualified for the grand finals. I mentioned Vico and Malibuca already, but we did have 4 other teams win games. They were Marius and Fredoxy, who played high in every single match and eventually did win in game 5. We had a fellow Danish team of Maldis and Lerix win as well. Demus and Franek won game 2. They actually beat out Murstache and Tayson in the final battle. Could have been a very different story for that other duo had they been able to win that. And we had Fastroki and Noah Rayleigh win a game. Noah Rayleigh actually had the 4th most damage and the 3rd most elims, which is pretty impressive considering that he played a game less than most other players. We also had Cringe and Volko make it through, as did Ivan and Hizix, as did Fruzy and Kenty, and as did Della and Alec. Credit to all of those players. And on to point 9, which is simply the other duos that failed to qualify for finals. As you can see, some big names, a bit of a Russian / Belarusian theme here. We've got Dan Depuzo and Azikgo, Sanya and Craig, the Latvian duo of Thexa and Xteria as well, and of course I mentioned Church and Repairs earlier. Other big names include Werex and Finchik, Anas and Trippin, Japko and Kiri, and Trulex and Faded Pigeon, who were contested throughout the tournament. So definitely some known players but weren't able to get through. Listen, that is going to do it for this video from a very hot room. Please subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with European Fortnite news. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one.